Welcome back, everybody, to the Land Between the Meadows, the Kentucky History Podcast. I'm here, Mr. Cable, with Mr. Pope, and we are here on June the 20th, correct?
Oh, that is right.
Today is June 20th.
I think so.
Yes, and
I'm not sure of the year. But
yeah.
I really do get mixed up on years. Sometimes I'm writing a check or something. I don't know whether it's 1918 or 2018.
Well, the thing they've said to make sure you put 2020 on this year because they can change the date on your check if you don't put 2020.
They're going to be bad no matter what. What the hell does it matter?
But today, we start off. It's June 20th, and if you're familiar with today's times, it's not June 20th. It's June 19th.
Okay, whatever.
It's June 19th.
I'm telling you, who cares what the damn date is?
So June 19th, and I bring this up,
but it's an important date historically.
It is that's what's very important day historically. And I got to say, I'm shamed, I'm saddened that this never registered for me or has never registered for the country to say, hey, this should be a holiday. This should be a national holiday.
Yep.
And
well, it's because we've oftentimes put black people on the back burner, man.
That's very true.
We think of our own white history, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, can you tell me the day of the United States Independence Day?
July 4th.
Yes, correct.
1785.
So, I mean, you would think independence would mean independence, and you would want to celebrate independence of anybody. And how June, it just never has registered to me that is not.
Because it doesn't matter to us white people.
Well,
really, it does. It should. It's our country.
We talk
about
our
brothers and
European
sisters,
history.
But European history.
And we never have. I was baffled. I didn't even know about it. But
that line about what is history and what's important and who's important in history. That's really one of the things I want to talk about because the person we're talking about today, John G. Fee, is just incredible. Just incredible. I mean, he's somebody that we have not given enough historical prominence to, and we'll talk about that a little bit today, and I'll try to tell you why. They talk about moving Jefferson Davis Monument from our capital, and they've done that. And there's been numerous people say, well, who should we put in on the pedestal there, in place, and I heard someone say, well, how about Dolly Parton, and I don't think there's hardly anybody that would disagree with that and wouldn't want to look at her. But in all honesty, up there with Abraham Lincoln should be John Fee.
I think so.
He should be on the statue.
He needs a monument.
As far as what we're dealing with today, Black Lives Matter and equality and really trying to hone down our country and get better, and realize what the mistakes we make and have made and are making and trying to change. John Fee, he is the man stands taller than anybody else of these people. And he needs to be recognized. Yeah, we're going to talk about why today.
Oh, yeah. And we talked, we've been talking about John C.C. Mayo, which we're going to bump this one up and go ahead and get this one out.
He's a jerk. Compared to
John
John Fee, he is a jerk. He's not worth mentioning.
And I'll tell you.
Honestly.
Yeah. And
he isn't.
And it's crazy.
A guy that screws people out of their own land and then makes millions and flaunts it around to everybody and thinks he's a big shot and controls Kentucky politics.
And then
heck with him.
And this guy. And you may not have known about John C.C. Mayo, but I had no idea about John G. Fee until I stumbled upon his autobiography, and man, I read it, and I was like, my goodness, this guy.
I've always respected Berea College and his efforts. And
this guy's a man to hold high.
He is a man to hold high. You're right, hold in the highest level. That's right.
So
as high as anybody in the history of Kentucky. I'm
really?
talking Henry Clay.
I would put him above Lincoln, which Lincoln was just born here. But more influent, better than Lincoln, better than Henry Clay.
Yeah, I don't know if they're better, but they're certainly in that realm.
Oh, I'm saying he's better.
Who's better?
John G. Fee.
Well, I'm saying, he's great. We could look at him. He's certainly not publicized as much.
No.
And, people don't know about him as much. But
they need to.
He's up there, man. I'm with you on that.
Well, maybe at the end we can debate on who's better.
All right. I agree with you. I mean,
he's good.
I agree with you, man.
Yeah,
he's good.
He's good. I mean,
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
John Greg Fee was born in 1816. He died in 1901, if anyone cares. But the thing about it that's interesting to me, it gets me excited, is that he's from Bracken County, Kentucky, Augusta, and for me, I don't know, and I'll take a little plug for Augusta for you people that that are out there. Augusta's one of my favorite towns in Kentucky. It happens to be where my antique business is on Main Street, that I'm open on Saturdays.
Itchy Dog, right?
Itchy Dog Antiques, man. Right down towards the river.
Shameless plug. But come
Shameless
get,
place.
come
That's
go.
right across from the Irish pub. Anyway, John Fee was born in Bracken County. And in Augusta, which is one of the most beautiful towns in Kentucky, as I've said, and it was also... last year was nominated as the most beautiful tourist town in Kentucky, so it's not just my opinion. But the riverfront there is just incredible. The old homes overlooking the Ohio River, Antebellum. It's unbelievable. There's a ferry there that goes across the river and always has been since before the Civil War.
Wait, more beautiful than Crab Orchard?
Yes, more beautiful than Crab Orchard. I love Crab Orchard, like the area. But John Fee met his wife, who's also from Bracken County, and they're both slaveholding families.
That's where that's the
Kind
most
of
interesting.
upper middle class slaveholder families, not big shots.
No.
At the main part of his life, John Fee's father owned, I understand, 16 slaves at the peak, and I don't know how many his wife's family, his father-in-law had, but at least he came from that culture. And yet he went to school, which is something. He went to school at the Augusta College Academy for 2 years, I believe, which is in Augusta, and it's also one that I've been working on as a fundraiser. I've donated money to them. They've had auctions, and they put antiques in it to raise money to restore this old Methodist college, which John Fee attended. And I think he also went across the river for 2 years and attended Oxford, Ohio College. And he went to Lane Seminary for 2 years in Cincinnati. And then he got with another famous Kentuckian, Cassius Clay, Marcellus Clay, the old Lionheart, which is the cousin of Henry Clay, who was an abolitionist, unlike Clay. And he and John Fee established the town of Berea. And in that town, true to his spirit and his soul, John Fee established Berea College. John Fee converted, was raised a Methodist, went to Methodist schools there at Augusta and so forth, but he became a Presbyterian. And I think, I'm going to go out on a limb here a little bit. Some of you listeners may, throw darts at me for saying this, but I think the Methodist Church, the Presbyterian Church was, at least the Northern Presbyterian Church, was a little more progressive as far as accepting people than the Methodist Church was, and maybe is today as well. The Presbyterians are a great religion. Put a plug in for them. It's not my faith, but I respect them. My sister goes to a Presbyterian church and everyone else. But he wanted to establish this college because he understood, and that's what makes him so great. For nobody else has until today, people are starting to wake up a little bit. Oh, you mean we need to treat people right? You mean to treat people equitable, even though it says that in our Constitution, that all men created equal? What's that all about, huh? But anyway, he saw this, in the 1850s, and he established, 1845 maybe, he established Berea College, and he wanted it to be a school for not only blacks, but do you know who else?
Women?
Women!
Yeah!
Coeducational. Yes, that's nice. So whites could go there, and blacks could go there, and women could go there too. And women, weren't allowed to education.
Yeah, at all,
we
until
don't want any smart women.
To vote
their problem today, I guess.
100 years ago,
my wife is.
Easy. She may be listening.
She may be listening. We don't want to get them too smart. And that was that was the role. That was the thinking.
It was.
Keep them home, man. Keep them cooking the cornbread in the
garden, in the field.
That's right, in the field. Yeah. I was up in Morgan County, and they were talking about this, and they showed me the area where the family garden was, and they said, my grandmother took care of the garden. Said Grandpa wasn't allowed in the garden. Women took care of the garden. They did the cooking, and they went out and had a big garden.
They want them to get in there and screw it up.
I don't want to get in there and screw it up. The women took care of it, and they had beautiful gardens. But going back to Berea College, at a time before the Civil War where there was just such little awareness, and in Kentucky, a hotbed, Madison County, a hotbed for slavery and for pro-slavery people.
Oh, well, I want to preference this and give, what is one thing that you, in today's time, that if you were to say, I'm making a stand on this, would be radical? What's one thing that you could think of? I mean, people would. I mean, if you. I mean,
Oh, really? Right now?
That you
That'd
could
be radical?
make up, and you think would be just radical.
Well, some people would say it'd be radical that Black Lives Matter.
That's true. That's true.
You know, I was with some people earlier today that said that. They said that was radical. They said troublemakers.
I don't.
I'm serious. I just came from there.
I can see people saying that.
Yeah.
So thinking about
So it's hard. It's hard to make changes for any society anywhere, and we're in the middle of a lot of changes. You know,
well, that brings me. That makes my point.
Yeah.
That makes my point.
Go ahead.
You said these people thought you were radical.
Right.
Or that's a radical statement.
Right.
And I mean, if you said that, people might not be your friend. They might, not want you around.
Right.
I saw, you saw videos, of course, of people chasing people out of a way, like you're not welcome here, that kind of stuff. John G. Fee in the 1840s, 1850s was radical.
He was radical.
And he was radical.
He was radical
because of one thing that you would think, would be very common sense made, that we don't,
we still haven't got it. We still haven't got it today.
People are equal. People are equal.
That's right. Male, female, black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're equal and should be treated fairly in society and by the law.
And you think...
They wanted to kill him for that.
Oh, gosh, man. We got some stories.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start out with these stories?
I've been doing some talking. You can tell me one.
Well, okay. So, and you mentioned Madison County, but I mean, it was everywhere. He was shunned.
Oh,
he
yeah.
was shunned from Bracken County.
Yep.
He wasn't allowed in there. The craziest things.
Bracken County, is in Augusta's in the northern part of Kentucky.
On the Ohio River.
On the Ohio River. Just west of Maysville, Kentucky. Not far from John Rankin and Ripley and the Underground Slave. And then I haven't read books on John Fee yet, but I bet he was friends with John Rankin because they were both very spiritual people, and they were connected on both sides of the river with spirituality. And they also went to school. He may have even started the school, Lane School in Cincinnati. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But he contributed to it and had ministers from it.
The big thing I got from John G. Fee is he had this passion, a big passion to preach the word, preach the gospel, and that was what his basis was on. He did not care 1 cent about the Constitution.
Right.
He based it all on the Bible.
The Bible.
And everybody's equal. Everybody deserves it. If you're a man of God, or if you're created by God, then you deserve everything that everybody
You don't
else
treat
got.
people badly.
Don't treat people badly. Yeah. And he went around preaching that all over the state. And and we talk about John C.C. Mayo being fixated on Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
John G. Fee was fixated on Kentucky as well. He wanted slavery out of Kentucky.
He did.
And that was his main goal. And everywhere. I mean, the whole country. But his passion, he could have went to Ohio and not been as ridiculed possibly.
Right.
He could have went to Pennsylvania, anywhere up north, but he wanted to stay
Those 16 slaves that his family had, that was wealth. I'm sure he set them free, when he
They were inherited.
They were inherited.
His father inherited them.
Right.
Generations. And this story is...
And let me tell you about his father's slavery.
Yeah.
He inherited... When John Fee and his father obviously didn't disagree, they did agree on changing from Methodist to Presbyterian. And later in life, his father had his whole life been invested in slaves and buying slaves and selling them and keeping them on his farm. But later in life, he changed and decided he would stop buying slaves and put his money in land holdings because of the influence of his son, John.
Yeah. And whenever John came up and said, I can't think of the age that he was fairly young. He was out of, he said,
out of the seminary.
Dad, you're doing the wrong thing. This is wrong. We don't need to have these slaves. He was banished from his home. He was not allowed. And his father said, get out, we're not having this. But anyway, he's going around Kentucky, and he starts at multiple churches. He starts his church here. And it lasts for so long, so many years, and he gets it going, and then people come and run him off. And he goes over to another place, starts a church, gets a good following, and people are listening, people are understanding. You know what? He's right. He's talking what the Bible says, and he keeps going and going.
We're a church, and we're discussing what the Bible says. That was radical. That was radical. Yeah. And he established Berea. He did all this you're building up to, and he established Berea in 1855.
Yeah. You think about, that's 10 years before.
That's right.
Well, 5 years before the Civil War started.
That's right. 6 years. That's right.
Yep.
Hotbed time.
Hotbed. He's running around on a horse and a buggy, and he gets married.
Yeah.
His wife is then, she agrees with him, of course.
She does. She was
she's
very good follower. Right with him, man.
We're going.
We're going.
But the interesting thing about his father is that at one point, he comes back to Bracken County, and he goes. They needed a place to stay,
right?
So I think he was able to stay with. They stayed with his in-laws, but he went back to his father, and he bought a lady. He bought a slave off of his father, and he freed her immediately.
Wow!
He's like, and I mean, this was, of course, this made his father so angry, and the lady, wanted, she was, of course, thrilled to be free, but she would not leave her children. So John G. Fee told his father, this is the deal. I've bought I've freed her. She's free. You have to accommodate for her and build her a house or a cabin of sorts on the land, on your land, and so she can still be with her children. And of course, John's father was he was upset about it. He did not want to do it, and he's like, I will sue you, and we'll go to court over this. And, it's law. You got to abide by the law. And his father, went along with it.
Wow.
And that lady, at some time, eventually, her children, of course, got of age, and she moved to, I think maybe Woodford County, and he kept in touch with her all through his life.
Wow.
And I cannot remember. I think it was Woodford County. There's a bit more on that story, but that was one of the things that really, he did not stand. He did not stand down to anyone.
In this period of John Fee, when he was doing all this, just as a backdrop of what was the backdrop of a nation at that time, the Mexican-American War was going on, which was really controversial to a lot of people. They thought, I think maybe Henry Clay even thought this, that it shouldn't be fought because it was like big old America picking on a little tiny country. And basically they knew what they were doing. They're just taking their land from them.
Yeah.
And they said that's not right. And passage of the Missouri Compromise, which authorized and funded the fugitive slave law that said that if a slave runs away to Ohio or whatever, by law you have to bring him back. You can't keep him or shelter him. Formation of the Republican Party during this time, which was for the abolition of slavery originally. Isn't that interesting? And, of course, the Plains Indians at this time were ceding their lands in exchange for the reservation system that they had. So Fee, another thing that he saw, and this gets a little technical, is that he wasn't only opposed to slavery, but he was opposed to the Southern caste system. Where generation after generation, just like you were talking about his father, having slaves, passing them down, people of wealth have higher levels of valuability. Maybe you can think of some other words in a society, that you were born into wealth, or you're born into slavery, or you're born poor, so you're going to stay poor. That really bothered him. He hated the American caste system, period. So this is white people too. He just thought that was wrong. And, he felt that by establishing Berea College that he would break the caste system because he would take poor people and educate them and give them the power in society. Blacks, women, poor people from eastern Kentucky, John Mayo's people, He would educate them, make them teachers, lawyers, whatever they wanted to be, doctors.
Better society.
Better society from the bottom up. And he resented the top down.
And that all went very smoothly, right? He did it very easily.
I don't think so. But he did do it.
No.
He did do it.
Yeah.
He was successful. That's why he needs to be on that pedestal today, because he's a man of our time now. People don't recognize him, but now he's like the greatest Kentuckian that ever lived.
He
really is. If you think what he stood for, if we're really examining history fairly, come on, people.
Yeah.
This is where it's at, breaking down the caste system. We have a caste system today that needs to be broken. We really do. And some parties are contributing to that caste system to keep people of wealth. It's like a country club of society. And we're still born into it. We see the children right here at this school and every other rural elementary school in Kentucky, that they're a part of a caste system that needs to be broken.
A cycle.
Yes, sir.
How much money was John G. Fee worth?
I have no idea.
I don't either, because it wasn't about money for John.
No, it wasn't.
G.P.
You couldn't put it on. You could on Mayo. At any time during his life.
I read his autobiography, and of course, it didn't talk about him. Obviously, after he passed, he didn't. He can't write anything about him. That's the point I want to make, is that he did not do any of this for money or for fame or anything. He did it based on his principles.
That's right.
And
Fee based his argument for inclusive education that we were talking about on a strict understanding of the Christian gospel, just like you were saying. In 1847, he published an anti-slavery manual in Maysville, Kentucky. That's where John Rankin is. Next county over, Mason County from Bracken County, if you know Kentucky geography. And his writing advocated the oneness of the entire human race. Imagine that for today.
Radical.
This was an extremely radical and controversial belief in his day, more so than even today. It's radical today, in which he stated that God hath made one blood all nations of men.
Yeah.
All nations. Yep. Foreigners, too. That includes the Chinese, the Mexicans, the blacks, everyone. Yeah. One nation of God. They're all a human race.
So
what a radical thought.
He was. And
they wanted to kill him over it.
Those pamphlets that he made, that he sent them out, and they were
after him.
He was after him. There was so many times. One of the times, and I'll do this because it's close to home for myself, when he was beginning his establishment of Berea, or trying to get just a church, a following there in Berea, he would, his location was Berea. He had him in a little cabin. Him and I don't know if Cassius Clay had helped him build it, or if it was maybe the Rankin guy. I think it was the Rankin guy who had helped him.
With what? Berea College?
No, the first cabin, his first cabin.
I don't know.
And so they were building a cabin, and that was his center hub, and then he would make these appointments and go around to these different locations and have these speeches and this and that. Well,
circuit rider.
Yeah, so he went over to Rockcastle County.
Oh boy, they're ready for him over there.
And
that's not a big slave county, though.
It's not.
No, not at all.
No.
It's mountain county.
But he went over to Rockcastle.
Over the mountain.
And he had
over a big hill.
A schedule. Yeah. A scheduled appointment. He calls them appointments in his autobiography, but it's an appointment that with meeting with the family, and there's probably 50-some people there. That might be a little high, but 25 to 50 people. He was there meeting him. Well, no, these were the people he was meeting with that were for
Christians.
Listening to him.
Yeah.
Well, they all proclaim to be Christians, but anyway, he gets there, and as he's meeting, guess what begins to gather around?
Oh boy, the good old boys,
the mob,
the mob, KKK,
and they are all armed, and they surround the place, and they go up to the people whose house it is and says, "Listen, we're not here to harm anybody, but we want fee." And so,
he string him up.
And the thing
lynch
is,
him.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
he
he came out, of course, and said, once I'm done here, I'll leave. You leave these people, and you can do what you want with me.
Wow.
And so he finishes his sermon service, however you want to declare it. And of course, he's saved so many people. So many people, joined his cause. But then he comes out and he gives himself up to the mob. And you think this is crazy, but this happens time and time again. I would say 20 times in his life he gets. What would you call it? I don't want to say captured by a mob, but I don't know.
Threatened by a mob.
Threatened. That's the understatement. But anyway, they pretty much say, "Listen, you don't come back here, and if you do, we'll kill you." And he tells them, he's like, "I'll go wherever the gospel leads me." He's like, "I will not hold to any man's wishes." And of course, he does this every time. Every time he's like, "I will not, promise you anything. I cannot promise it does not go with the will of God."
Wow.
Yeah, and
that's why he ought to be on the pedestal in Frankfurt. Hello,
so anybody
listening out there, join us, help us.
Come on,
get him on there. It's either he or Dolly Parton. I know Dolly Parton probably goes more with.
She's from Tennessee.
Now, I know it, but she goes more with the mentality of Kentucky,
But this mob, they tie him up.
They'd rather look at. I'm sure. Dolly. I'm serious.
Keep it G-rated.
I'm serious. Serious. They would.
They tie him up, throw him on his horse, and they lead him out.
Wow.
And I can't remember. He always has somebody with him, but one of the people that they had with him, it might have been Rankin. It might have been another guy. They whipped him. They whipped the guy that was with him. They whipped him. And he was, to a point of almost death.
Wow.
And Of course, John, they threaten him and say, "Hey, we're going to whip you next if you don't abide by our wishes." And of course, he says, "No, I will not." And of course, they whip him a few times. Oddly enough, they don't whip him as bad as they did the first person.
Yeah.
I assume maybe they're whipping the first person and say, "This is what you're going to get."
Right.
But he was so steadfast.
You know the book, The Whipping Boy, that we teach in the fifth grade, where the kings, they have a whipping boy that the son does all kinds of bad things, and it says the boy is there, and they just beat the boy because of what the kings did.
That doesn't affect the boy, the king's son.
Doesn't affect the king at all. He just laughs at it.
Yeah.
You know.
So eventually, though, this group says, they've heard him enough, and they put him on a stand and said, "We don't want to see you back here." But of course, and they put him on his horse and sent him away. But of course,
he comes back.
He does.
I've got a
again
story.
and again. Oh, what do you got?
All right.
Well, let me wrap this one up real quick, because this whole time they send word to his wife and say, "Hey, they've captured John again. We need help." And his wife rounds up the people that she needs.
Comes a posse
to find them. But guess who they run into on their way to rescue? John G. Fee. He's already gone. Yeah, he's already on his way back. He's like, "Everything's good. Let's go back home."
His buddy that's with us all beat up.
John, Rankin or whatever the guy's name is at the time. He's in rough shape.
He's in rough shape. He's in good over.
But go ahead. Let's hear yours.
Well, we talked about Cassius Clay, the Lion of Whitehall, I guess they called him. He was invited to Berea College in Berea to give a speech on abolition. And in the streets, there were so many people that crowded in. They came from everywhere. There were hundreds, maybe thousands of people. And he has a podium, on a wagon or something, and he starts his speech. And people came in, just like you said, that gang from Rockesson County and everywhere else, to kill him.
Yeah.
They said, "We're just going to kill him. We're not even going to let him speak." That's the way things were done back then. And he knew it, and he'd been warned, "Don't go down. They're going to kill you, man. There's 500 people that want to kill you." So he got up on the podium and he said, he started off, he says, "Now I understand." He tells the crowd, "There's a whole bunch of you out there that want to kill me." Because he was a big, tough, mean guy anyway. And he said, "For those of you that want to kill me that are Christians," he said, "I have this." And he pulled out the Holy Bible and showed it to everybody and laid it on the couch. It says, "Thou shalt not kill."
Yeah.
And then he said, and I'll quote exactly what he said. He said, "For the rest of you sons of bitches, I've got this." And he reached in his belt and he pulled out a pistol and a Bowie knife and stuck the knife in the podium and laid the pistol down, loaded pistol. He said, "I've got this for you." And that's the way he began his speech.
There you go. And I'm sure, I know the speech you're talking about, and everybody listened
Everybody listened very carefully, But he had his hand on a revolver right there on the podium.
Interesting enough, some of the people, because Cassius Clay, he was an abolitionist,
right.
But at first, him and John, they saw eye to eye, but not in every statute.
Can I say one other thing? The Madison County Sheriff's Department came out to Clay's place one time, and they developed a posse, and they were coming after him for something. They didn't like him because he was an abolitionist.
Yeah.
But he was the ambassador to Russia and all kinds of places, and he was a military man. And he had a cannon. He had this big southern mansion with a foyer, and a deck, and he had the cannon set up there. And as they came charging across his fields towards his house, he fired the cannon right in front of them. And they all turned around and ran back to Richmond.
What you think? He was armed and ready?
He was armed and ready, man. Getting the bad guys.
But at first, they weren't, I guess, eye to eye on everything. But as they obviously had the same cause or had the same end that they wanted. But at the end of this speech that he gave, the people of the crowd, there were some of them said, they both are right, and I don't know. Is
this Cassius Clay?
Cassius Clay and John G. Fee were both. They're both right. Only one thing: Cassius Clay's a politician.
Yes.
John G. Fee's a man of God.
That's right.
That was the two
different things.
Yeah. And
it's kind of hard to be a politician and a man of God. Don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely.
People would argue with that, but
I don't know.
I ain't gonna argue.
I don't know where you're. I mean, you can say Democrat, Republican, either or.
That's right.
I don't see how. I don't know what ground you're standing on.
I don't either. Isn't that
They don't hold the ground.
Isn't that something though?
It is.
That statement. That's incredible.
That is.
So we don't elect Christians then to be or Buddhists or anything.
They might say they are.
Yeah, they all say they are.
Well, yeah, they are. But I don't see it. No.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let me say one more thing. Kind of wind it down a little bit, if we can.
I don't know.
Later in life, I mean, it's so exciting to talk about him. later in life, he turned over the reins of Berea College, and they shifted directions. They shifted directions. He had over 50%, African Americans, blacks, in his college at that time. And the new fellow that took over, I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but he had a different policy. He said, well, I want to help people, but, I want to help more people like from Appalachia, more white people, and not focus so much. And John Fee just went absolutely crazy till his dying day. He fought that. He disturbed that. He wrote about it. He said, no, he understood the post-war problems of Reconstruction and the way that blacks were treated. That they were even rougher shaped than they were when they were slaves in many cases. And he understood that. And he said, now more than ever, we need to help the blacks. But they changed the college and they began to create more for poor white minorities, which is the same thing. It's too bad we even have to talk about black and white. But I don't know that we said this, but do you know that Berea College was the first Southern school that was for blacks and for women, coeducational for either one?
Oh, I'll tell you, yeah.
It was number one, first in the South. So it's kind of important to get that. There's another reason why I ought to be up on the pedestal.
Yeah, I mean...
But, blacks don't count, women don't count. Unless somebody's saying that, I don't see how they could be opposed to honoring him more in the state capital of our state, in the tundra, whatever they call it, rotunda.
Rotunda, yeah.
But, that's just unbelievable. But till his dying day, he was really upset in 1901. He was still unhappy because he thought that it was really easy to just, change direction and go there.
I know who we need to contact is the councilwoman in Berea. Decor, I'm not sure how you. But that's who we need to talk to get old John G. Fee rolling to the Capitol. Because if there's anybody, you can go on and on. But, the stories we've talked about today, the one in Rockcastle, it didn't just happen in Rockcastle. That story happened to him 10 to 20 times all over the state. And to think about marching around or walking around or, riding your horse around.
Yeah. Constantly
being harassed. Everybody in the state knew John G. Fee, abolitionist.
Yeah.
We don't want you around here.
Didn't like him.
Simply for just standing up for what he believed.
Why do you think they did that? You think they're just hateful, or do you think they're money people? Do you think it's just money that he was stepping on?
Well, I'd say it's both.
I'd say it's money.
I would say
I'd
money.
Say it's economy.
Oh,
I think, that the slaves represent the labor force for agricultural America.
And without that,
and plus their investments of thousands of dollars in the slaves and their production, and to take that away, was just incredible.
Well, and you could even in the big plantations, you have bigger plantations as you go south. But even the middle of the road plantation, I'm sure John's father in Bracken County, him losing his slaves would really affect his income.
You mean I have to go out and cut 50 acres of land by myself?
Yeah.
Not drink lemonade in the shade.
But interesting enough, and two, you talk about Presbyterian and Methodist. There's many times in John's autobiography when he calls out denomination altogether. He says, denominational churches need to go away. He said it should just be churches, and he uses the term a Church of Christ, but he doesn't mean that as in Churches of Christ here. Right. And so he means a church that focuses on Christ.
Right.
And he was very much against denominations as well, just because he felt there was a time that he started up a Presbyterian church, and they, or maybe, I'm pretty sure.
Most churches were status quo organizations. They'd lose their members if they talk like Fee.
Yeah, well, that's what happened.
We're out of here.
That's what happened.
They won't get the collections.
He had a church, and he was, they came in. They said, "Hey, the hierarchy of the church. Hey, you can't be doing that, or we'll rip out our membership, or
your members will leave, and the money giving people. And he said, the big boys in the church.
He said, "See you later. You can go."
Yeah, the big boys in the church that give the money. They'll be gone.
Yeah. So he did. Multiple times he would start up a church. People would come. He was very convincing. People followed him. Yeah, followed him. He persuaded, baptized many people.
I'm gonna pay for my fried chicken on Sunday.
He calls out. It's the Catholic Church that does sprinkling, right? Yeah, he called out the Catholic Church and said sprinkling is not a form of baptism. He He was. I mean, he was a rebel, man. He was a rebel against many social injustice, religious injustices, and many.
That kind of joke about eating a bucket of fried chicken after church. My dad, I have to tell the audience, my dad was a minister, and after Sunday, sometimes we couldn't afford it all the time. Maybe once a month, after Sunday preaching, we'd come home and he would stop by, and it was a big thing to me when I was growing up, and get a bucket of Colonel Saunders KFC fried chicken, and we'd take it home with the mashed potatoes and gravy and everything, and eat that. And that was really something. I always look forward to Sundays, not for church, but to get that bucket of chicken. So I was good. I went to Sunday school and top in my class and everything else. So I get that bucket of fried chicken.
What kind of chicken was it? Was it KFC?
KFC.
KFC?
Yeah, KFC in Lexington.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yep, on Nicholasville Road. Still there.
So Great place. This is complete. We're going complete sidebar here.
Well, not really. I was connecting it to John Fee, and paying for the minister.
Yeah,
being able to buy a bucket of chicken.
And it's so interesting.
He wouldn't have done that. He'd have given up the fried chicken, eaten bologna or something.
Well, there was another time because once they started establishing Berea and it was becoming a bit of a hub, he had to build another cabin for his family. He was off at some place and he came back, and when he came back, this was I guess during the Cassius Clay when they were really getting together. And he said he's like, where do I need to build a place for me and my family? And he had a place. There was a place that they said, over this place you can go do that. Well, he went to start building, and somebody else came up. They said, hey, well, this is where I was going to build a land. And he said, well, if they've already offered it to you, it is yours. And then the guy, so they went back to Cassius Clay, and was like, hey, he'd already promised it to him, it's his. And then the guy didn't realize it was John G. Fee. And he's like, well, if you're the head of this place, you can have it. It was a very, ironically, peaceful negotiation during the time to say, and they had this little, back and forth. And he's like, it ended up like they let John keep it, and the other guy, he's like, I'll take this place, you can have that one. And so he built his house, and his family lived there. But there's a time too that he was chased out of Kentucky. And he was in Ohio, and he had to stay for a few years in Ohio until I think it was at the outbreak of the war that he feared for the safety of his family and himself, so they went to Ohio they were threatened constantly. But then he came back during the war, and it was kind of interesting. His wife and two of his kids went to the Maysville, Bracken, kind of circle around that way, and he came through Lexington and Richmond, and he stayed in Lexington during the Battle of Richmond, but then he eventually got back to he actually joined up with some of the army and got back to Berea, where the
Isn't that wild? Can you just imagine those times?
Oh no, I can't. I mean, it would be
battles going on and all kinds of stuff. It's just wild.
Yeah. It's
wild, crazy, and right through the country, especially in places like Kentucky, which most places were like that. Even in the South, there were Union sympathizers, and of course, Kentucky is full of them. Majority, really. And
we talked about the martial law,
and all
Kentucky
that. Good gracious, it was wild, man.
It was really
wild. These are hard times. Go out for a little pony ride. You might not come back.
Yeah.
That's the way it was.
Especially if people knew whose side you was on.
Yeah.
And so forth.
It doesn't have anything really to do with this podcast, but it has a lot. I just met with a fellow. I have an antique store, and I just bought a Civil War double barrel made in 1850 woman's buggy shotgun.
Whoa.
Muzzle loading. Double barrel for a woman to carry in a carriage.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
That's cool.
you need to
That's right.
take
We're talking about, and they kept it, double barrel percussion.
Take some pictures of that stuff. Yeah. We'll post it out there. That's cool.
Yeah.
We might need to do.
So why would they be carrying a double barrel? It's a little shotgun. It's real cute. Looks like a little boy's rifle or something. Double barrel, 28 gauge.
Well, and the thought, and since we do talk about history, and that's
occasionally,
we may talk about KFC and so forth from time to time, double barrel shotguns, but it's all right.
Or debate whether Dolly Parton or John Fee should be in the rotunda at Frankfurt.
Well, and I'll tell.
She's from Tennessee. What are her other qualities?
And I'll tell.
She sings nice.
I'll say my gist, and I think you will probably agree, maybe on a little bit, but oftentimes I hear the and people have their opinions, and whatever your opinion may be, that's completely fine. I'm completely okay with it.
Yeah.
But people might be upset about them taking down Jefferson Davis's statue, and whatever your reasons are, that's fine. You can have those reasons.
Right.
But the argument that I hear a lot is it's erasing history.
Right.
But I think I want to state, I guess my thought is that is not. I do not see that at all. And I don't see that at all because history is there no matter what. Whether there's a statue to look at about this guy being there or not. And the thing is, the statue was moved to Todd County, I believe, in a place that you can go see that's there. Yeah, his birthplace. You want to honor the people who stood for positive, uplifting things. And to me, John G. Fee sits and fits that more than anybody I can think of.
Right.
Right off the top. And if you're looking at somebody historical during that era, he fits
the man.
That. He fits that.
He's a man of the age, and that tells us something else for those viewers out there. When we look at history, look at what we're talking about here. I mean, it's like, where do we point the camera? For a long time we pointed at Jefferson Davis as a great man, leader of the Confederacy and homeborn here in Kentucky, and then suddenly it's like, he's not popular historically anymore because of this, that, or the other of what he stood for.
And are we looking to be popular, or are we looking to be I mean,
boy, who's ever correct? Who's ever been correct?
well, correct not. Yeah.
Are we looking to be I don't think we do correct. I don't think we do correct in society.
That's probably very
we do
true.
emotional.
Emotionally correct, yes.
And now it's time for someone like John Fee. It's like, whoa, who is this guy?
Let's talk about him.
Yeah, let's talk about him for a minute and compare him to Jefferson Davis or something, and what he stood for, and see, who do we want to put up there? And the one thing is, and I'll say about the Confederate, is that who does it offend? And that's the problem with Jefferson Davis, and that's the problem with people. Someone said on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, they said. They wrote in there and they said, anybody that's related to anybody in the South is a traitor. God, that made me so angry.
Yeah.
So I wrote them back and I said, you're talking about my kin. You so much. That's what I wrote. I did. I wrote it. And I said, you're talking about my kin. They're not traitors. You dang Northerners are traitors, But, then when I get, settled down, take a deep breath and everything, I understand, It's just we need to make some changes. I agree, and make them positive, and be careful who we put up. It's like Dolly Parton or John Fee. I mean, let's debate it publicly.
Well, I know Dolly Parton. She sings very pretty.
Very pretty. I think we ought to end it with that. Leave it out there. Let it hang out there and see what people say.
Oh, yeah. And,
write in. Who do you think we should replace?
John G. Fee or Dolly Parton?
Or Jefferson Davis. They'll throw them all three in there. You want to have some fun.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah. Well, and we'll also.
I got my dog in the car. It's a hot day.
Yeah, we better get rolling.
But I got to go.
And just to wrap,
squirrel hunting.
Just so when you hear the next few episodes, I'm putting this one out on this. It's June 19th, correctly. That is the day.
That's right. Yeah.
And we're gonna go ahead and put this one out on Sunday. However, we recorded this past Monday, finished it up on John C.C. Mayo. So you're going to hear this one, and you'll see John C.C. Mayo.
Let me just say, I don't know that everybody out there, maybe you do, maybe you're way ahead of me and us, but what a connection you're making here.
I know. And
abolition of slavery, and John Fee on this weekend.
Today, I know.
I mean, my God, and we didn't really plan it that way, I don't think.
No.
We've just been saying for weeks and months, when are we going to talk about John Fee?
Yeah,
he's somebody we could talk about.
We've been talking about John Mayo,
what the heck? Yeah, you scumbag. And then here it is, and this is his week.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. That's heavy, man.
It is, man.
We're got somebody's looking over our shoulder. The sun's shining on us.
Whispering our ear.
Really. There's a big parting of the clouds, and the rays are coming down. Man, I can see them out there on the Crab Orchard Playground, man. Looking at it right now. All right, I got to go.
We got to go.
All right.
If you want to connect to us at KY History Pod, Twitter or Facebook, or the Land Between the Meadow at gmail.com, and we will
vote.
Yeah, vote. Yeah, that's coming up Tuesday. Vote.
Well, vote not only Tuesday, but vote for Dolly Parton.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So we got
stay focused.
That's right. Stay focused. I'll put it Dolly Parton or John G. Fee. All right. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.